Hi, everyone. Welcome to Radiant Living, Inspiring Humanity to Thrive. I'm your host, Marisa B. And today I'd like to welcome international photography consultant, author, teacher, lecturer, and practical spirituality adherent, advocate, and dare I say expert, to share with us her incredible story, insights, and wisdom. I'd like to welcome Selina Maitreya. Hi, Selina. Thank you so much for coming today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. First, I'd like to ask you, and I'm sure the audience would like to know, because you were already an expert in your field, consultant, lecturer, author, how did you get onto this spiritual path?
Well, I actually got onto the spiritual path long before I became a consultant. My name, Selina Maitreya, was given to me when I was 16 years old. I'm about to be 69, so it's been with me for quite some time. It was given to me by my first spiritual teacher when I was a teenager. And at that time, I was introduced to the writings of Madame Blavatsky, the Golden Dawn, really older, teachers. And it fascinated me and it enthralled me and it put me on a path. And in my 30s, I met my current teacher, who I've been working with for over 25 years. And there I learned to embody what I believed to be true, embody spiritual practices instead of just reading about them and moving through my life without their affect, right? So that was always important to me. And in my 30s, I did become the first consultant in the country for commercial photographers, and I became a single parent. And because of the nature of my responsibilities to my kids and the success of my career, I didn't have a whole lot of time to actually teach, but I was dying to teach. Spirit had started channeling through me years before, about 2 or 3 visits in with my teacher, and I felt really compelled to teach. So even though I was really busy, I created workshops and I gathered people in my home to share what I knew. And there were a few spiritual places around our community, and I really engaged there. And then I became a member of the Theosophical Society in Boston, and ultimately a board member. So I was doing a little bit at a time. But then in 2013, after 15 years of being a single parent and keeping my boys in their home and putting them through college and working and doing little bits of teaching, I was going to New York to have a new life. Our house was sold, my boys were moved on, and a woman hit my car 2 days before closing, which changed the whole trajectory of my life. But from that point on, for the last 12 years, I've done nothing but teach. It's been very, very, very important to me.
But you did, in fact, have a serious, I know someone hit your car, but it was serious. I mean, you were in seriously injured condition, correct?
Yeah, I was. It was a remarkable experience. It truly was. I had an Audi convertible, a small sports car, and the woman who hit me had a van, and she was coming 70 miles an hour in the
Oh my
driver
gosh.
door. I didn't see her coming, and I was just in this incredible mood. It was the first day of the rest of my life, because here I was. I had been a mom working like 12, 14-hour days for 15 years, loved it, not complaining. But finally, here was literally the first day. My house was empty. I was going to clean it. I was going to closing. Um, and when she hit my car, the car just filled with tremendous light, and I thought I was dying. And what had happened was Spirit came through and channeled through me to me, because I'd been a channel for years, and let me know that this was created by them. This was the opportunity for me to be taken out of my life for quite a long time so they could reshift my frequencies. And they told me that my work was just to surrender. And I then didn't exist after that. As soon as the message came through, I in the world of form, we call it being
Yes.
knocked unconscious.
Yes.
And I was in another paradigm that was amazing. And there are quite honestly no words for it. So I was left brain injured for the next 5 years. Yeah, pretty seriously brain injured. I was in New York City, not the place you want to be when you're brain injured, because there's so much noise and light. And I was given lots of opportunity to connect to source. So for the next 5 years, the majority of my day was spent just in quiet, in, lying down with my eyes closed in connection to source. I did what I had to do, but I only had an hour or two literally for years that I could focus a day.
Right. I mean, let's say on the physical plane, it was serious. We say it was an accident, but I mean, it was life-changing for you. It was serious. I mean, you speak eloquently now, but
Thank
it
you.
was a long road back
It was.
because you were injured, had traumatic brain injury.
Yeah, it was. And you know what? I refer to it as an event because words to me, I'm a teacher of vibration, and words to me carry vibration. And an accident is something that wasn't meant to be. I call it an event. And Spirit has asked me actually to refer to it that way because it was that. It was they took me out of my life, and it was I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't go anywhere without great difficulty. So, and I couldn't work, and I lost my opportunity to know when I'd ever be well again, because after a year of healing a brain injury, neurologists tell you however you are then is as good as it's going to be. And I could barely fry an egg. Taking a shower was huge because you get completely wiped out when you have a brain injury. So here I was going 120 miles an hour for 15 years and ready to move on to my next life, and completely stopped. But I was fortunate that I had the connection with Source and I knew what was happening. And I surrendered completely, and just there was nothing I could do but surrender because I had no capacity to do anything else as well. So it was an interesting um, it was an interesting conundrum for some people, perhaps, but for me, it was perfect to just surrender and allow it to be. But yeah, I mean, on the physical plane, I lost everything. I had to claim bankruptcy. I went from a very financially abundant life to no money at all and no understanding as to when. But I had faith and trust and guidance. And that's what brought me here. And the book that I was given to me a year into the healing when I couldn't even type or organize or have much energy. So I had to find other ways to retain the material and move forward.
And now, what is the title of that book?
The title of the book, which comes out in June, is Raise Your Frequency, Transform Your Life: How to Respond from Love to Life's Difficulties.
Wonderful title.
Yeah.
I can't wait to read it, because what I found fascinating was that you are practically living your spirituality and helping us through your wisdom and your insight to implement that in our lives. And so, and the book, it just sounds wonderful. And so this was something that was given to you while you were in the first throes of the event that occurred. And then how did you get it on paper? How did you, I mean, I know we say paper. I'm dating myself now.
No,
paper,
you're not. You're not. It's because ultimately it is a book, so it is on paper. Such a great question. Yeah. So what happened was I was living in New York, and from the time I had been working before the event, my work with my own practice was to go from being egoically directed, which means being directed from past pain, right, and my emotional body, and being intellectually guided to being intuitively guided, because our highest frequency, the knowing within us, our spirit level, our soul level, is our highest wisdom. But we're conditioned to be in our brain and respond to life from our brain or our fear, right? So I had been working for years with my teacher to make that vibrational, and it is a vibrational transition. And then when the car event happened, I got it. I had more opportunity. So I have from that point on, I don't think about what to do. I get guided. So when Spirit told me that I was to write a book, my first response to them was, you've really got to be kidding, because I can't write, I can't organize. All of my natural skills, because I'd written 2 books before, were gone. And they said, just record into your phone. So for 4 years, as they downloaded, I recorded. And then when I was able to type about 5 years later, I mean, I could type before then, but reliably, because we don't think about this, but there's a lot of focus that goes into putting your hands on a keyboard and organizing. And I didn't have that capacity. So about 5 years later, I started to transcribe the messages. And they had already directed me. I had moved 6 times in 8 years based
Mhm.
on Spirit's guidance. And each time was amazing because I found the people and the lifestyle that would accommodate where I was in my healing. So when they finally moved me to Woodstock, New York, very magically, I met Nancy Butler Ross, who became my editor.
Mhm.
And that was fabulous. So then she edited the book, and then it was time to market it. And that would have been about 3 or 4 years ago.
Mhm.
And I did. I had very little time still. I was only working at that point 4 hours a day,
Mhm.
which meant I had a little bit of time to earn money. And the rest of the time, I was trying to send it out to agents and
Mhm.
publishers. And I got really no response. And so Spirit said, put it down, let us
Mhm.
decide the timeline, and create work study groups around the book with your current students. So I did that. And I
Mhm.
took 30 students through a 10-month program with the book as
Mhm.
our reference. And each month we studied a different chapter. And then the book is written as a workbook. So
Mhm.
there are teachings and practices in each chapter that literally help you to make the new
Mhm.
changes the book is suggesting. Because we wanted, and I say we, it's Source and I,
Mhm.
wanted to not just give you information, but teach you how to get there. So
Mhm.
the students brought these practices into their life, and it blew me away to see, it blew them away too, but I was watching 30 people, the changes they made in their
Mhm.
life. Um, and then a year ago in November, a woman I had met previously in New York City had a relationship with Inner Traditions, which is a phenomenal publishing
Mhm.
company. They've been around for 30 years. They have over 2,000 titles. And let me tell you, the people there are incredible. And they actually reached out to me from her introduction, and they loved the book, and they
Oh,
saw the
wonderful.
importance, and they signed it up. And here we are a year later, just a couple months away from
Mhm.
publication. So couldn't be more thrilled. But
That's
that's the
wonderful. And
journey,
we
a
needed,
10-year
right?
journey.
Yeah. The 10-year
Oh
journey,
my,
but we needed, right? I mean, we
uh,
needed. I hate to say that many people are reactionary, but they are, even on
yeah.
the roadways, right? I mean,
It's everywhere. And, it's an interesting thing. In 2012, before I moved to New York City, before my car event, I was traveling to New York every month to give lectures in my
mhm.
photography career. And I went at one point in 2012, I sat with some of the elders, the Mayan elders, because I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember, but in 2012, everybody was freaking out and what's going to
Yes,
happen because the Mayan
because of the
prophecy.
calendar. Yes,
Right,
right.
exactly. So I sat with the Mayan elders, and it was crazy because there were 5 of them and only 7 people showed up for this teaching, which was such a gift to those of us
Wow.
that showed up. But they spoke about 2012 as being the first year that there would be more consciousness activated on our planet than ever before. And so I asked them, I said, oh, well, that's wonderful. Does that mean we're going to have an easy time? And they said quite the opposite. They said the adage of as above, so below
Mhm.
is important. The adage of you can't you can't create a yin without a yang,
Mhm.
meaning that as soon as lightness comes in, the
Mhm.
nature of how we function and the paradoxical nature of energy is that as light is created, so is dark. As dark is created,
Mhm.
so is light. So as there is more consciousness on the planet, the energy of the dark fights more. It's kind of like individuals, as we seek, as the book
Mhm.
teaches us, how to move from our egoic point of view into a higher frequency response to life.
Mhm.
The ego comes in and tries to really
Yes.
keep its place in our body in many
Mhm.
different
Mhm.
ways. And it's the same with the collective, so that as there would be more light, there'd be more dark. And I think,
Mhm.
Marissa, this is why we're seeing so much chaos, because
Yes.
underneath all of that is all of this light and all of the folks like yourself who are
Mhm.
sharing information and helping to build us up. So there's a lot of dark that comes to counteract
Oh,
the light.
the, your answer's spot on. I heard this recently that it appears that there's more darkness because the darkness has appeared more because there are individuals that are walking in the light and with the light. And
Mm-hmm.
really, if you would have asked me a year ago, I would have never expected to have a show, a program,
Yeah.
interviewing individuals of a like mind. But because as you and I spoke a little bit before the show, the hatred,
Mm-hmm.
the harm, the terror that that darkness inflicts is so prevalent that we needed to counterbalance that by speaking about the light and walking in the light. And that's why I found that what you actually teach, the practicality of this, how to live every day, and the workshops that you offer, the book that's now coming out in workbook form for people to work with. And of course, you have 30 people who have done it already that you actually were able to observe. You've taught, you observe them, and to put into practice, which is so important because we do fall into ego. It's almost human nature. We try not to, even for those of us that are actually trying, but it does happen.
And you know, you've said so much there. You just put in those few moments so much information for us. Thank you. It's really, really true. Wow, I almost don't know where to begin. You gave us so much. So let me share with you that, yes, let's go to the ego. That's really important. I am not a teacher that ever tells people to lose their ego. What I share is we are multidimensionality. You know, we are, I call this lifestyle, I'm sorry, I call this form, your form, a life stream. And within the life stream is my physical body, my physical brain, my emotional body, my personality, the history in my body. All of this is within us. There is also, however, the low frequency of the ego, which is indeed the pain body, as Eckhart Tolle tells us, all the pain we've had. But we also have the high frequency of love, the soul level, our highest wisdom. So the work here isn't to get rid of the ego, because all of those aspects have purpose. It's just that the conditioning we get from society, which doesn't acknowledge the higher frequency of who we are unless we go to church or temple, and then it's acknowledged as something outside of us. But it's truly something also inside of us that we have agency over. But we're not taught that. And society tells us to respond to difficulty with more. Somebody cuts you off, as you were saying, on the road. Most people give them the finger or scream or get upset. Why? Because their ego has been activated. So what we do here and what the book teaches us how to do is not to lose our ego, because it has purpose. When you're stepping off a sidewalk, you want your pain body to be in there to go, have you looked to the left or the right? You want that alert system there. But we don't need that fear guiding our life, because we know, you know, I know, people in the light know that moving forward from fear is a frequency that creates more of that. Spirit has always told me our next moments are created from the last. If we respond to chaos with more of the same, we're perpetuating that and creating our next moment from that very energy. So we want the ego to be there when it's needed, but not when it's not. We want the emotional body to be in alert, to let us know when we're out of alignment with our highest knowing. We don't want it to run our bodies and our lives and our life stream telling us, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because the emotional body certainly runs in alignment with the ego. But the emotional body also runs in alignment with the higher frequency. So the reality is, whatever frequency is present in our being is the frequency that the brain creates structure around. Science tells us the brain does not create anew. What the brain does is it recognizes what it knows and creates structure. So what the brain recognizes is frequency. This is why we have EKGs and EEGs, measures the frequency in the brain. So we're using that frequency actively and responsibly when we learn how to respond to chaos. Chaos lands and we're freaking out. Before the brain can create that structure, that thought or emotion, we're going to transfer that. So in this work, we learn how to recognize that difficulty that the ego shows us, the pain, because we want to recognize it, but we want to transform it. So the book shows us how to literally transform the frequency in the moment. And it takes practice and it takes work and time, but it's really possible.
But you know, I always say just to give it a try. For example, those of us that have been in and out of New York City, we know that there's a lot of traffic, and you could very easily be angry and hostile and argue or be fearful. But sometimes if you just let the person go in front of you just slow down and flow with the traffic, it really gives a different feeling for the
Well,
whole trip that you're out there. It really is the vibrational level when you do that. And that's something so simple that we can try.
it is, but we need to know how, because that's, you see, that's the thing, is that it's one thing because people will be listening and saying, oh, I agree with what Marissa's saying. Yeah, I'd like to do that, but how do I do that? And that's what the book teaches us. There are over, I mean, I think there's, 10 or 11 practices. Each chapter has, the book builds on itself, and each chapter talks about a certain, we have 4 blocks we talk about that we've put in front of ourselves as we go through life that stop us from being able to be in high vibration, which enables us to build and hold our abundance that we're building. And so in each chapter, there are exercises, practices that you can use then. And really we need, because we are creatures of habit, that's part of our humanity that you mentioned before. We are creatures of habit. And the habit, when we say, well, creatures of habit, what does that mean? It means we have vibrational patterns within us already that we need to switch. And when you're talking about switching vibrational patterns, you're talking about a lot of opportunity to have awareness of where you're at. What do I need to change? And then the opportunity to change it over and over and over. So I think the one thing that is really important for people to remember as they're listening to your broadcast is, yeah, we can make these changes, but you need to have the practices to change them. And then you need to have the willingness to do the work over and over in the moment where it happens. Because you're right, this is work that is done in the moments of our lives to change our lives. And what you said also before was important, that you make these changes in our daily life in that moment, in being in the car, as you were giving us the example. And not only do we change ourselves then, and we can find ourselves literally from feeling frustrated and scared to letting it go and really being able to bless that person. And it not only calms us down and shifts our frequency for us, but we are part of a collective of energy called oneness. The energy of oneness that is within us, that's the high frequency of who we are. Soul level, we can call it highest knowing, but it's also oneness, meaning that we are all connected. So you have a different physical appearance than do I. Everybody in the world looks different. We have different histories. We have different personalities, experiences. But the one commonality we all have is the high frequency energy of love. All of us have that. We are born with that. That is what comes into our body. And when it comes into our body, that divine light, then we're birthed. And so as we shift our state in any moment, we're shifting the energy in the collective of the oneness. So that's the responsibility we have, you see, not only to ourselves, but to the world. And you and I also were talking before we started the call about light and dark, the energies of light and dark, which are prevalent everywhere. And our work as people of consciousness is to help the light that's in the world, to add to the light. And we don't add to the light if we just attend workshops or we just read books. We do a little bit because our consciousness is shifted a little bit with each piece of knowledge. But the real work and the beauty of this work is that as we do the work for ourselves, Marissa, we are doing it for the collective. So I have students say to me, oh my God, I'm so worried about the state of the world. What can I do? And I always tell them the most responsible thing you can do, the most accessible thing you can do is to change your frequency as you move through the day, because then you're changing the frequency of the collective as well.
Exactly.
So it's not just work for us, it's work for the world.
Well, it is. I always quote Rabbi Simon Jacobson, and he says that whatever you want to call it, source, the divine, God, a spirit, the universe, your birth from that source means that you matter. And that's a weighty phrase, because you matter. You don't only matter in your importance as your being, but you matter in your responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
You matter in your contribution to the collective, because it is a job. It is a job. And ultimately, that's why we're all here.
Yeah. And that's beautiful. And it's your responsibility, right? To the collective. I love that. That's really quite beautiful. And it really reminds me a lot of Kabbalistic teachings, where we're taught that we are all a spark of the divine.
That's right.
And that is a responsibility, because when you shared a moment ago what the rabbi said about you matter, he's not invoking the ego and saying, oh,
Right.
you matter. He's invoking the ego saying, you matter. You show up for the light, because each being has a job that they've come here for. Each soul has a job that can affect and effect the light. And we're here to find out what that is and to be that. And for some people, that doesn't mean you need to be a teacher or a host like you, Marissa. It means that
right.
It means that even as we walk in our life, our daily life, every person has the opportunity to create that change in the world just by being in the light, by responding to any chaos in their life from the highest frequencies of love. And that's why I'm so passionate about this book, because I don't see a lot of people talking about our daily responsibilities. It's usually let's meditate, let's pray, let's do community service, all of which are wonderful and helpful. Absolutely. But how we show up in our life is our most accessible way to create change for ourselves and the world. And that's why I'm so passionate about getting this information out there.
Now, do you do one-on-one work in person or online? Or because, of course, the world has changed since the pandemic, so we have pivoted in different directions. How are you working with individuals now, or groups for that matter?
Yeah, I do both. I have students who've been working with me for quite some time, because this work is progressive. People, when they start to do the work, are usually very conditioned, even if they're well on a path of spirituality. The people that come to me are spiritual teachers and healers. They're CEOs, CFOs. I have therapists I work with. Doctors, I work with lawyers, people from life, and very often they're already on a path in some way, but they realize they haven't embodied their beliefs. So they know them, but there's still places in their life they're out of alignment with that, and they really want to become in alignment. So I work with them online, and also I'm going on a book tour starting in June when the book comes out, and I'm going to be going to 12 different states in the next 2 years to hold book readings and workshops, because I'm really keen in connecting with spiritual centers and coming in and doing a workshop based on the book, so that we can work all day with people who are really interested, and we can practice the tools and the techniques together. So I'll be on the road doing that. I also do run 2 groups, a mastermind group, and in the fall, there will be a book similar to my book study groups from before on the book, so that people can meet with me online once a month. And we're going to be working with each chapter once a month as we did before. Thank you for that.
You're quite welcome. I'm sure the audience is going to want to know. I know you have a website, which of course I will put that link in the description, but I want to know, will that all be like your itinerary of traveling? Will that all be on your website? Do you have social media for people to follow? Because I'm sure the book is going to have its own section on your website and social media.
Yes, it does. My website is Practical Spirituality, not a surprise, with Selina.com. And Selina is obviously Selina. We have a page all about the book on the site that gives you details and insights from it. And it has quotes from people who've already used the work from my groups, as well as some experts in the field who've read the book and just love it. And there will be a whole listing once they're set up. We're now in the process of partnering with different different spiritual centers and bookstores. So that will be ongoing and dynamic as of next month, April. We'll have all of that listing so people can see where I'm going to be. If anyone is interested from listening to your show and wants me to come to their town, send me an email, selina@selinamaitreya.com, and we can talk about that. Because as I said, we're now constructing that list.
Right.
I'm also starting a GoFundMe because I was financially wiped out. I don't have money to travel to 12 places, and publishers don't have money either.
Right.
So what I'm doing is I'm doing a GoFundMe campaign because I want to have workshops as well as book readings. And at the workshops, I want to offer scholarships because there are always people that have gone through difficulty that want the work but can't. So if my travel expenses are covered, and it's about $1,500 to travel for a week anywhere in this country, and that's not staying in fancy places.
Right. That's just right. Get there and get
there
settled.
and
It's
stay
true.
there. Right. So if I can have all of my expenses covered, then I can work with my spiritual centers as a partner, and I can offer at each workshop scholarships for people who can't afford to come. So I'll have a GoFundMe page at some part, and I
wonder if the crowdfunding would help too.
Yes.
I wonder if that would work because of the workshops.
Well, that's certainly something we're looking into for sure. Probably through the GoFundMe. I'm thinking that as the expenses are paid for the tour to go around, we'll see where we're at for sure. But thank you for that. Also, I am on social media. I'm Selina Maitreya on Facebook. I love to see people there. I have a page called a community of 14,000 people on Facebook.
Oh, wonderful.
Called Practical Spirituality. I have a private group, and anyone who is a heart-centered leader is welcome to join, called Leading from the Heart on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn. I am on Instagram. I will say that my Instagram and LinkedIn is being worked on now because I've spent the majority of my time on Facebook being brain injured. It's only been the last 3 years that I've actually had time to build all of this. And then the book came in last year. So I've been working with my publisher. So the Instagram and LinkedIn, less active, but Facebook very active. But
I will link all the social media because some people have different preferences.
Absolutely.
And some people hop around to everything, right? They
absolutely.
hop around. So, yes.
And it's a good thing to do. And I appreciate that. And we will be more on LinkedIn and Instagram as we move forward. Yeah. Thank you for that.
So, you're quite welcome. So where do you think you would go from here, since you're so busy already, and you already have plans to go out for the book tour and continue with workshops? Do you see yourself doing another book? Do you see, because the Spirit's leading you, and where do you think you'll be?
I have absolutely no idea, because I am completely guided. And when Spirit comes along and says, this is the next step, then I engage my brain to do it. I'm thrilled, to be perfectly honest, because I know you can imagine, because I can tell you're quite an empath and you care so much about the world, that being taken out of your life so quickly and being asked to stop everything and being completely wiped out physically, financially, and otherwise, and coming through that to the other side has left me in such a state of joy and so excited about being able to share this work. So I am focused right now on all of the things I have to do to bring the work to people. And that's what I'm so passionate about. So I'm really just focused on getting the work out there, on meeting people like yourself who are just providing all of us the opportunity to have so much more light, and getting the work in front of people. I want to work with people one-on-one as I travel. I want to share this through book signings and book readings and doing workshops. I just want to get this out there and help the world to learn that we don't need to respond to darkness with more of the same, that truly
Mhm.
our calling here is to learn how to respond to any difficulty from higher frequencies of patience and kindness. Because when we do that, we become those energies. We become love.
Mhm.
We become, patience. We become kind. We become compassionate. And I want people to have that experience so they have much more enlightened lives,
Mhm.
and the collective is much more
Yes.
enlightened.
Well, of course, because everything stems from love, really, right? It all stems from love. I know we often say, may peace prevail, but how will peace prevail if we don't love each other? If
Right.
there's
And if
not
we
the
and if
feeling of
we don't
love, if
walk in
that's
that, and it comes
in
down to
that
each
energy,
individual,
yes,
right? It comes
that's
down
right.
to us. There is no other. It comes
That's
down
right.
to us.
Right. That's why I like
Yeah.
that quote from the rabbi, because it is a responsibility. It is so much a responsibility. You're responsible to live your authentic self.
Yeah.
That's why you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And our authentic self is love.
that's right.
Our egoic self is our conditioned response
That's
that
right.
comes outside of us. But what came into, Source told me years ago, and I love this. They said that, light comes into bodies in order to perfect itself,
Mhm.
because there is no need for perfection
Mhm.
where light exists. So if light needs to make an
Mhm.
adjustment, it needs to come into form, it needs to come into this world, and so it comes into
Mhm.
bodies. And so as we become born, we are born of light. As the rabbi said, we are born
Mhm.
of love.
Mhm.
That is our authenticity. But we don't act from that frequency. We don't
Right.
move from that frequency often enough, because we get conditioned by society to
Mhm.
tell us to respond to fear with more of the same. So it's a completely new re-education that we get to
Mhm.
use, not just think about, we get to learn how to move forward with
Right. Put it in practice. Put it
in
in
our
practice
daily
in the
life.
world,
Yeah,
right? In our daily lives into the
right.
world.
Yeah.
And so now if anyone wants to reach you to do workshops in different areas, I know that you're no longer in New York. And I know that you used to have workshops in New York City, in different areas of New York City,
Mm-hmm.
and other states as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if can they go onto your website? Is that the easiest way to contact you if they want to ask you to come out and do a
Mm-hmm.
workshop or an event with your book? I mean, besides the actual bookstores with the tour.
Yeah, thank you. No, absolutely. Best thing to do, you can certainly go on my website to take a look and see if the work
Mhm.
resonates with you. But the best way to contact me is to email me, Selina
Mhm.
at selinamaitreya.com. I read my own emails, I
Mhm.
answer it. I have a team that helps me on the back
Mhm.
end of the organization, but I'm right on top of my own emails. So send me an email and I will get back to you within 24 hours and we'll set up a time to talk.
No, so
And
that'll be
same
perfect.
thing
I'll
for
add that as well in the
super.
description so
Yeah.
people can see.
And same thing for people who might want to work with me one-on-one.
Yes.
I always love to set up free opportunities for us to talk. So
Mhm.
if you're interested in doing this work, and you want to find out more about it, to know if
Mhm.
you're interested, just email me at selinamaitreya.com. We will set up an hour to meet on Zoom or the phone. No fee whatsoever. And we'll talk about where you are
Mhm.
in your path. I'll explain the teachings and we'll see if this is the work for you.
Oh, that's wonderful. I
Yeah.
really want to thank you so much for coming today. I know it's only the tip of the iceberg, as I always say, because within a confined amount of time, we can only touch on certain subjects. But it was a thrill to have you on today. And
Well,
I
thank
just
you.
absolutely love the work that you're doing. I can't wait for the book to come out.
Well,
And I would love to have you back on. I mean, there's always something to talk about.
I'd
There's always
love
some
to come back
subject.
on. I would absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. And thank you very much for today. And also, just thank you for the work you're doing. I said this before we got on the call, and I am incredibly sincere about this. Folks like you that have a platform to reach so many, I'm so grateful for the work that you do, because you're
Oh,
helping
thank
the
you.
world to really transform. So thank you so much for that.
Oh,
It's wonderful. Yeah,
thank you for saying that. And thank you for coming on and have
pleasure.
a wonderful afternoon. And I will be in touch. Hopefully, we'll definitely have other subjects to talk about.
Well, I will look forward to that for sure, my dear. And you be well, and thank you again.
You too. Bye now.
Bye.